In the shadows of the darkness all around, waiting and watching, trying to take us down. Haters gonna hate no matter what you do, but we ain't looking back now that we've made it through. Rising up, no stopping us, we're on our way. Doesn't matter what they try to do or say, we're just getting stronger, can't touch us any longer. We're on our way, and tomorrow's always gonna be a brighter day.
The screen, I wasn't. What's up? What's going on? Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good to see some of you in the chat, Ruthie and Sarah. Hope some more people join us tonight. We're going to be covering some fraud, some corruption, some drama. Not the usual drama. This is going to be with the Massachusetts CCC. I almost don't want to say the word because I know YouTube's going to whack us. But you know what I'm talking about. We'll probably end up saying the word. There's certain words they don't like on YouTube. But the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission, lots of drama and just lawsuits and just things we should look at tonight. We have a doctor coming on the show. A doctor. Did I say that right? Yeah, he's a doctor. A smart guy. He's a scientist, actually. We have a real-life scientist coming on the show. He's going to answer some questions from a consumer angle. He runs this Institute of Cannabis Science. You can find his website, cansign.org, like C-A-N. Here it is. I'll just put it on the screen so you can see it. CANSCI.org, Cannabis Science. Cansci.org. Check out his website. He's also a writer, journalist. We posted some of his stories from Talking Joints Memo, which is run by my buddy, my old friend, who's also used to be my editor when I wrote for Dick Boston. Chris Ferrone runs that, Talking Joints Memo. He's written a bunch of stories for them recently. One really kind of following up on some of the things I was covering when I was covering the cannabis. I got so frustrated covering the cannabis, the CCC. I can't even say it anymore. Cannabis Control Commission. I got so frustrated covering them. A lot of the stuff that I reported on, people were shaking their heads back then. They didn't even know what I was talking about. But then it all kind of came true. Everything I said was kind of proven true about Shannon O'Brien, about the Cannabis Control Commission, about the fraud. And this gentleman, Jeff, who's going to be on the show, he's a PhD. He has been reporting on it all. He's been kind of confirming, I think, a lot of the reporting that I did a couple of years back before Karen Reed. And a lot of it, got me going about Lorna McMurray when she passed away, when she was the cannabis worker that died at the dispensary operation, the cultivation site. And then what the Cannabis Control Commission didn't do about it. They didn't help the workers. They didn't listen to the workers. They ignored the workers. The Massachusetts State Treasurer, Deb Goldberg, wouldn't even take a call from the parents of this dead 27-year-old cannabis worker. She's supposed to oversee the Cannabis Control Commission. And the only one that was listening to us, the only one, was the chair of the commission, O'Brien, Shannon O'Brien. She was someone that I spoke to often about these issues. She was trying to help us. And then they got rid of her. Then there was a bunch of fraud about getting rid of her, and she sued and she won. And now she's suing. She's the former treasurer who was hired by the treasurer to clean up the Cannabis Control Commission, and then was illegally, what I alleged was an illegal firing of Shannon O'Brien by the treasurer who hired her, because Shannon O'Brien was uncovering too much fraud and corruption with the Cannabis Control Commission. She sued and won and got her job back, but the damage was already done. The State House had had enough, and they reworked the rules, and they basically came up with a new commission structure now, totally different. But the treasurer is still running for re-election, And this is the only election that I'm endorsing anyone. I'm endorsing the Republican against Deb Goldberg. She's that bad. You never see me endorse Republicans, folks. I'm endorsing the Republican. That's the only one I'm endorsing anywhere in any race this year is the treasurer's race, because Deb Goldberg is terrible. She needs to be removed. And hopefully the Republican Dion wins. We've had her on the show. She's a great candidate. She's fiscally responsible. She's very smart. She's also somewhat progressive. Some of the MAGA people get mad at her a little bit because she's not MAGA enough. I really like her, Patricia Dion. You should definitely check her out for treasurer. But let's get beyond the politics. Let's look at the corruption. Let's look at this repeal. They're looking to repeal the law this year. I don't know if you know about this. They want to take our legal cannabis away. They want to make people illegal again. They want to take tens of thousands of jobs away from the state and tens of millions, hundreds of millions of tax revenue. They're putting it on the ballot to repeal cannabis this year in Massachusetts. November. I suggest you vote no on 8. If you want to protect the jobs, you want to protect our rights, you want to protect the tax revenue especially, you got to vote no on 8 this fall, this November in Massachusetts. We're going to talk about all of this with, like I said, a scientist. We have a scientist here. He's also a doctor. Welcome back to the Young Jerks tonight. What's up going on, Jeff Rawson?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for being here. How you feeling tonight? There's a lot to cover, and we haven't talked in a while.
Man, it's been a while. You know, I think the first thing on my mind is gratitude for you for you know, I haven't seen you talk about the C word in a while. The C word that gets to YouTube without offending too many of our friends. The cannabis, the devil's lettuce, as they like to call it when they're being cute. So I'm really happy that you're having this conversation with me tonight. That's great. Yeah. So yeah, that's the main thing on my mind. And so I also want to thank your lovely audience who are listening. Some folks are participating in the chat. I really appreciate you guys for coming out and listening to what we have to say. Yeah,
so
and that's
much.
a great point, right? Initially, you know, right? Like you bring up this repeal, and Sarah here wants to know, like, what's going on? Isn't this bringing a lot of money into the state? My goodness, yes, it is. So that tax revenue is in the hundreds of millions of dollars per year for cannabis. So yeah, definitely no on 8. All right. So yeah, and most of that money, you know, what's really funny is, so this brings in, you know, on the order of around $300 million.
$100 million for the state.
Per year. Yeah, which is a lot. Okay. About $270 million of that goes to the Bureau of Substance Abuse Services. And then some of it goes to social equity, and about 20 million-ish actually goes to the CCC for operations. So it's important to remember that the CCC oversees an industry that does over $1 billion of business a year. They bring in about 300 million in tax revenue ish. Yet they're regulated by only $20 million worth of effort, which is probably not enough. And that's a good, you know, so this is a starting point for anyone thinking that all this corruption and chaos is somehow a sign that cannabis is bad. Really, it's more a sign that this is all new. You know, expertise, it takes time for things to emerge. Our good friend, right, Chris Ferrone, pointed out that the early years of alcohol regulation, after prohibition of alcohol ended in the early 1900s, was also pretty exciting and chaotic. And we remember what prohibition of alcohol was like, right? And the gangsters of that time. So, and the dramatizations of them, which are so exciting. So, yeah. So, you know, I would say definitely vote no on 8. This is bringing a huge amount of money into the state, actually, cannabis. Lots of people like going to the stores. The stores are much safer than the internet sources. All right. I've tried a lot. I've gotten a lot of products from the internet. And I've also gone to like the smoke shop kind of stores, the ones that aren't dispensaries, that aren't actually regulated. Right. There's a big difference in the quality of products. So
Yeah, and one thing that we're seeing on the screen here is that it's generated over $2 billion in tax revenue in the state already. 700 plus
cumulative,
businesses, legal businesses, and you got 20,000 plus employees that would lose their jobs. That's going to be a huge dent to Massachusetts, and not just the state. You mentioned the state, but also these cities and towns. Like my town is supposed to be a rich town. We just did a huge override. Every year they asked us for an override, and every year we said no. This year we actually did vote for an override because, and I think people just got to the point where they realized the town really needed the money. In fact, our high school has a leak in the roof, and the teachers and the students are all getting sick because there's water coming down on them in the school, and mold, and this is what the cities and towns right now in Massachusetts are strapped for money. Every city and town is asking us for overrides right now, and people are out of money. Like everyone's budgets are stretched from the local people, especially the taxpayers. If you're paying real estate tax, you know that your property taxes are going up. They have been going up. The property values have gone up, and people that are retired in their homes want to stay there, and they can't a lot of times afford the taxation anymore. And if you want to make that worse, if you want to increase your local taxes even more, vote yes on 8, because that's exactly what it will do. It will cost the cities and towns a lot of money because they're raking it in on cannabis right now. That's saving a lot of cities and towns. And if you don't have this extra cannabis tax money, they're going to do more overrides. You're going to see more cities and towns asking for even more money on overrides. And there's an issue. There is definitely an issue right now, and kind of a retraction in government and spending, and things are not good out there. And I think it's going to get a lot worse. And if you take these jobs away, you take this tax revenue away, you're going to hurt so many more people. The damage is going to be so much worse. And I just hope that people are smart enough to say, vote no. Just say no. We just said no. Nancy Reagan wanted us to just say no. Vote no on 8. Just vote no on 8. I mean, that's it. Do you want to add anything to this, Jeff? Because I'm sure you have a lot more to say about this repeal thing going on.
Yeah. So I think one thing that's interesting to talk about for a minute is that Massachusetts is the front line for this initiative, right? But this isn't the only state where they've tried this, and this isn't the only state where you should expect it again. Okay, this repeal effort is part of a new playbook, and I'm really gonna shout out my colleague Kevin Sabet or Sabat,
my old friend. He was my old friend. I had a showdown with him at Wayland High School.
Because that guy, Dr. Sabet, has he's innovated. Okay, like we got to give him props. He innovated the prohibitionist message. All right, he learned an important lesson. Prohibitionism of cannabis ended up a major reason prohibition of cannabis has receded so much is because prohibitionists ended up on the wrong side of patients, right? So, and when a bunch of very empathetic looking sick people who were being helped by cannabis came out, it was really hard for anyone to say that wasn't right.
Especially the wheelchairs, and especially the moms with the babies, and epileptic seizures, and the wheelchairs out front. I mean, I was there for that. Yeah,
there's some conditions, right, that this really is actually there's some conditions for which we really don't have very great treatments, right? That's one thing to remember every once in a while, okay? Like we don't have perfect answers to every health condition today, right? So people are already choosing from shitty menus sometimes, right? And right, and so a substance that has a mild risk of addiction and some other like side effects that maybe some people aren't looking for is actually reasonable to consider for a lot of things, right? Especially as a last resort. But even if it's not, right? Like, it's also a fact that our society incorporates certain things that we find have a reasonable risk profile, right? And that the risk profile of cannabis may have been misstated in the past, probably was overstated in the past, right? So, anyway, these guys learned, and now they're driving a wedge between patients and rec use. And that's kind of how I view part of this action, right? That they, we're seeing progress towards Schedule 3 at the federal level, which is kind of remarkable. And I believe that this push, these ballot initiatives like the one in Massachusetts, are cognizant of that. All right. And so they say that they're going to maintain the medical market, right?
Yeah.
But I don't believe that they're making a very serious offer there. And I think that there are a lot of limitations to that. And but also, what about me? Like, I am not a medical consumer.
Yeah, and why, like, the whole thing about medical, I was a medical cannabis user,
Yeah.
and I got rid of my card. It's just such a hassle to go through that every year, and it's like, why would I want to do that when I don't have to have a card? You know what I mean? So
we don't all feel like it's a medicine for us, and
Yeah.
I like having stores. I think that's a nice way to do it.
Yeah.
I remember how we
and a
used
lot
to
of people don't want to be on the list too, like even medical users.
Yeah,
Like
signing up.
I gotta say about Kevin Sabet, like this guy. When I know you weren't around for this, but during decrim and medical and legal,
Yeah.
I had shows and podcasts and blogs and all that, and he and I were clashing a lot,
Yeah.
and so much so that he tried to make myself and Michael Malta the king of pot, as like he tried to use us in the campaign, like to not vote for medical. He was basically saying, "Look at these guys." He was trying to make us the poster child. And it blew up in his face. Like, it was just like, everyone was like, you're going after Michael Malta, a medical patient? Are you kidding? Mike Crawford, medical patient? Like, it just blew up in his face. And all of a sudden, like, I was on Channel 2 and telling my story. And, it was just amazing. And I showed up at his forum, and I was the only, like, he had a bunch of women from Wayland who were against cannabis, and I was the patient. I was the only one who showed up. And I had a microphone. I wouldn't let it go. And he had a nutty that night, but he wanted to go out for coffee with me. I was his big opponent.
Yep.
And then when I broke that story about Lorna McMurray and the working conditions, all of a sudden his people and himself were promoting my work. To try to overturn cannabis.
People,
and it's like, you don't give don't try to fucking use the workers, the cannabis workers, against cannabis. You don't care about the workers, Sabat. You don't care about anybody. You didn't care about the medical patients then. You were against medical cannabis. Don't pretend you care now. Don't pretend you care about the workers or what I'm doing. You discredited me, and then you try to use my journalism, my reporting, because I am fair. I don't have sides on this. You're a dishonest broker, Kevin Sabet. I've had a problem with that guy a long time. And all these prohibitionists who try to use my work on Lorna McMurray, the death of the cannabis cultivation worker, to go for prohibition. Lorna McMurray supported cannabis. I support cannabis. How dare you try to use the workers against their own industry? That was so shameful what they did. And I'm just tired of that shit. I really am.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Dr. Sabet, he, I said he's an innovator, and I respect him as a politician, but I agree with you that he tells some things in ways that are pretty crooked, I would say, right? Like,
he's disingenuous. He's very disingenuous.
He kind of presents a couple of one-sided things, and he uses a couple of cheap psychological tricks. So one of the cheap tricks that he uses is, but cleverly, right? Like, is he talks about smelling it around a lot. All right.
Yeah.
And this will get us to something really important and fundamental about how he thinks. Okay. Because I think he's smart. He talks about the smell. All right. There's a lot of background here. Okay. I've read a couple of books about moral psychology, and it turns out that all of our feelings of morality and judgment are very closely tied to our kind of the high
Olfactory.
that is, yes, that olfactory and disgust.
Yeah.
Like if you there's like, for example, like one famous kind of experiment that was described in a book I read was, that they basically set up two scenarios. One where someone starts having political conversations with strangers on the street, and another where he does it on the street right next to a stinky garbage can. And the conversations next to the stinky garbage can gets much worse. Right. And so like he's playing a trick. All right. Like, and he's saying, don't you smell it more? Right. Isn't that annoying? Right. Isn't that so awful? And you'll see a lot of times they'll say, well, I just can't stand the smell, like it's, right. Like and I can't get my kids away from it, And so like he's playing a really clever game there. Right. And he's working on deep, he's working on your subconscious. Okay.
That's amazing. You brought that up because, I don't want to make it about me. We're going to move back to this, but there's psychological games being played against me a lot, and they call me smelly now. So it's funny how the trolls say the same shit about me. And like, I take, a shower every day, once, sometimes twice, because I walk dogs. I like to wake up and take a shower, and then a lot of times I'm wasteful. I'll take a second shower. And I didn't today because I didn't walk too many dogs, but I do that sometimes. But they call me smelly, and it's just like, that is the game. It's so true. When they have nothing, that's what they just kind of go for that. Yeah, like you said, there's like that reptile brain.
Yeah, and so that brings me kind of in a way to the target audience, right? Like Kevin Sabet is not only messaging to anti-weed people, he's also messaging to a certain kind of wealthy, older, left of center person. Okay, and this is epitomized by an opinion article that came out quite a while ago now. It was maybe 8 or 9 months ago. It was towards the end of last year in the New York Times. It was a really big spread. It was the entire Times editorial staff doing a whole section, America needs to reconsider cannabis. Right, and basically what I figured out from reading that is they had seen Kevin Sabet's slideshow. Almost the same one that Wendy Wakeman showed several months later. All right. And these certain talking points, they work really well on these folks who are like the folks in my old neighborhood when I lived in Cambridge, just a few blocks from Harvard. And I was a few blocks from Elizabeth Warren, for example. Right. Like I lived in the Harvard apartments with all like the fancy houses around.
I know where you lived. It's funny because I know that area because I saw Elizabeth Warren in Cambridge one day walking her dog.
Yeah. I saw her one time in the pharmacy.
On Mass Ave. Yeah.
Activists, so I didn't interrupt them.
Yeah.
I was going to
I used to live in Cambridge too, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But whatever, anyway, I'm ranging off. I kind of know that like this argument works great there, right? That was the last neighborhood almost in Massachusetts to get a dispensary, right? Like,
you think progressive Cambridge, but that area. That
area was very.
They're kind of like they support Black Lives Matter, but they'd freak out if anyone black lived next to them. Like that's the crowd. Like it's all performative. It's all performative.
They go past the apartment buildings that have a lot of black people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They have the sign in their yard that says "We Believe," right?
Yeah.
So I mean, whatever. There were some nice people there. There's nice people everywhere, and I'm not trying to be too judgmental with them all. But my point is, there's a good target audience for these kind of arguments. Like, hey, did we mean to vote for dispensaries everywhere? Aren't a lot of kids getting drugs? And look at how cannabis use has increased. Okay, so they throw out some of these arguments, but each of those is one-sided. All right. So because first of all, here's the data. In states that have legalized adult use cannabis, youth cannabis use has declined or stayed the same.
Of course it has.
It's not grown.
It's obvious why it would decline
it's actually totally the reasons for increases and decreases in drug consumption are almost not at all what a lot of people think when it comes to society-wide. It's mostly generational.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, there's generational, but there's also the access angle.
My generation, I believe you're a little younger than I am, right? But
because I remember being 19 to 20, and it was harder to get alcohol back then. That was to get some weed or coke or whatever. Like, you know, because there's a lot of teenagers that were selling drugs back then. Like, they weren't selling alcohol, you know?
No,
And
no.
it's like that movie we brought up recently on the show, American Beauty, where
Yeah.
the 50-year-old plus man is scoring the
Buy
weed
weed
from
from
the
the
high
kid
school
next
kid.
door,
That's what illegal weed does. It turns high school kids into drug dealers. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
when you do a prohibition, and that's why teen use goes up, because all the kids are dealing weed. I mean,
Well,
once you made it legal, the teen dealers went out of business because
it's also,
the teen
though,
dealers are funded by adults. The adults, you know, I remember working at a bar. Cop comes in. This guy had an issue with a customer. He had hooked up with a customer. He's a bartender, and she was crazy and reported him to the police about some crazy shit. And
I'm
the
sure it
local
was
cop on the beat that used to walk by that knew him came in and said, "Hey, I got to ask you some questions about this report. You know me, Paul. I like you, so just tell me the truth. I want to protect you on this, but I got to do a report. I'm assigned to do this. Did you ever sell weed to any kids in this restaurant?" And the bartender looked at him, and this is the funniest shit ever. And he said, "Look, I'm an old guy. I don't sell weed from kids. I buy it from them. The dishwasher out back is the kid who sells me the weed. He's like 17. That's how it works." And the cop just looked at him and laughed because he knew it was the truth. Like, older people don't sell weed. You know, it was the kids that were selling it to the older guy. And like, that went away. You know, that guy, if he was still, you know, smoking weed today, he wouldn't be buying it from the dishwasher. He'd just go to the dispensary. No 50-year-old wants to buy weed from a 17-year-old. Like, let's be clear.
But, you know, humans have always had vices. And one of the kind of fairly universal characteristics of vices is that often we have a certain load of vices that we like to have, right? And so they can kind of displace each other. And so my example is like, kids today are more interested in their phones and social media than they are in weed. And that is actually, I bet,
more than sports, more than the video games and the internet. That's it. Video games and the internet is what kids are into now.
But like, it, you know, my generation was a heavy drinking generation, right? And then when I started smoking weed, I drank a lot less, and you know, like, right, like, and that's the part that Kevin Sabet, Dr. Sabet, is not telling you that yeah, weed use has increased a lot. And simultaneously, alcohol use has sharply declined, right? So the net public health effect is probably a benefit, right? I mean, I'm going to be a little more cautious than some people. You know, I'm not going to say that alcohol is 1,000,000 times worse than weed, but like, there's a fair amount of evidence now that alcohol has a very heavy cost on our society and on the health of a lot of people. So, you know, it's not, I don't think it's fair to dismiss that cross correlation when it's so dramatic, and there's enough reason to suspect it's actually kind of a, you know, actually some cause, right? So, you know, like, I feel like that's a really disingenuous thing that's done there, and that's kind of, you know, that epitomizes how I feel the data are presented. You know, when I read his articles, I went through one really in a lot of detail that he published recently, because he published an article with former Attorney General Bill Barr, who is one of my like kind of favorite villains of like Trump 1. So like, I feel like Bill Barr was one of the most complicated of the villains, you know, like sometimes had a conscience, but like, wow, what a limited conscience if that was what it was, you know. Sort of stunted, but it was there. And like, you know, like, but, and like, one of the things that I noticed is like a lot of the sources that they cite are really haphazardly selected. You know, like, they're not representative things or anything. I mean, he's not trying to construct a real argument. He's mostly trying to construct kind of like a straw man of what weed really is. You know, it's the dominant political tactic of our time to put words in your opponent's mouth, right? And to say, well, they're that guy, right? They're, you know, them, that, right? It's all othering. So, yeah. And, you know, but again, like, the thing that's clever about it is driving this wedge, or attempting to drive a wedge between medical and rec. And I know some people on the medical side who are kind of taunting rec people now. You know, they try to taunt me and troll me and say, "Oh, you're going to lose it." I'm like, probably not. I mean, we got to show up. You know, we got to work to fight it. It's good to see Massachusetts organizing against Question 8. There's all kinds of people I meet everywhere. Look, I just moved into this house. This house is pretty cool. It's over 100 years old. And I met this landscaper who was about to mow my lawn. And I was having like my morning smoke out on the back porch. And I said, "Oh, I apologize. I'm just having my morning smoke." And he said, "Oh, no, you're not bothering me, man. My plants at home are 14 feet tall right now. Buds like footballs." I was like, "Okay, thanks, buddy." We'll be talking.
I have 3 plants going right now. And I'm like, is this the summer of legal
grow.
plants that we're gonna grow? They're doing good this year. I think I finally figured it out.
If they look, people got to show up. Plan your vote, or vote early, or start on your mail-in ballot now. Okay. Or put for me, I decided I was going to vote the day of. All right.
Me too.
I like voting day of it. And I put it on my Google Calendar already. All right. So you do that. Okay. Because they will end home grow as well with this. Okay. And that is super uncool. Home grow should be first. They should have home grow before they even open a store.
Yeah.
Luckily in Massachusetts, we had home grow from the beginning of rec, right? So like, yeah.
Yeah. We had that from Go.
Yeah.
We even had it with medical, but they try to take it away at times. But like, adult use, that was the best part of it, is that we've been able to grow some plants, and there's a community around it. And it just, if they take that away, it would be terrible.
And the whole normalization, you know, like this has become popular with a lot of people you don't expect. There's a lot of people who really appreciate that there's a store where they can just go to buy a pack of gummies. They were never interested in weed before.
Right.
But now that like they have like what they feel like is a more reliable channel. And I remember those times, you know, like I'm just kind of a nerdy kid growing up, right? Like buying weed made me really nervous sometimes, right? Like
always, yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So, like,
you didn't know if you were going to get robbed or stiffed, ripped off, or arrested.
Sure, yeah, I got ripped off, and I had to pretend to like this guy's cat that shit all over the carpet, and you know, and hang out for a while playing video games with him.
And then waiting around. I'll have it. I'm gonna get it tonight. I'll meet you tonight, and then you never hear, and all that shit. Like,
and
it's
then
just
having to pretend to be interested in all his crazy, stupid stories that like didn't make no sense.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So we don't know. You know, a lot of people never wanted to take that adventure, but they were willing to go walk into a weird store and buy a pack of gummies and then try it, right? So, yeah, it's more popular than you think.
It also, you know, people who don't know too, like the Adelsons have funded a lot of this in the past. Sheldon Adelson passed away recently. He's like a casino magnate. He owned a bunch of casinos in Las Vegas, was against cannabis, and he funded Trump heavily. He was he was Trump's largest donor in 2016 and 2020. He passed away recently, but I believe his wife is still funding this shit. She's the one who was funding Kevin, you know, and the husband. I'll put him on the screen for people to see here. You know, because people want to know what's this really about? Who's funding this stuff?
Yeah, I've also heard that
this is Sheldon Adelson. This is the dude who was funding a lot of this for a long time. What is it?
But I've also heard that this particular initiative might have gotten substantial funding from Sheldon Adelson's widow, Miriam Adelson, I think is her name. What I did hear for certain, or what I have learned for certain, is that the money that paid for sort of like the petition drive that they did in late, say, 2025, that money came in just a couple of distributions from a DC area bank, you know, so that's where the political committee got it. So it's definitely like an AstroTurf kind of a thing. Wendy Wakeman herself, the person who showed up to talk about it, is really hardly worth discussing very much. She's just an older kind of political hack who you can tell has been around for a long time. She's a real pro. And to me, when I saw her do it, I saw no passion. It's just a job. She's just getting paid to say this stuff. She gave her slideshow, and I could tell she had rehearsed it once. But I didn't feel like it was just some stuff someone gave her. It's just a job. I really don't see her as any kind of architect, really, just like a paid head who has done that sort of thing for a long time. So yeah,
And she's a Republican too, a local Massachusetts Republican, which
of course,
it's funny because I don't think it's going to help.
Political operative, who does these kinds of things. Like, this is her bread and this is how she makes money. It's a job. It's cool. She's good at it, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think this helps Republicans in Mass either, because I think more liberals are going to come out to vote.
Yeah, I mean, look, the last place I lived before coming to this house was Plymouth, Massachusetts, right? And I mean, I knew a lot of people who were definitely like not on the blue side, right? Like, I mean, like really enthusiastically, a lot of people, right? None of them was anti-weed. Not a single one.
A lot of Republicans are not anti-weed, and
a bunch of them were fine with it, and some of them used it.
Yeah,
and like it's it's extreme. When people know what they're talking about, it's extremely popular. But when it's question 8 out of 9, or is it 9 or 10? I knew it's going to be around 10. I think it's 9 questions that are on the ballot this year. So question 8 out of 9, right? People got to really know to be looking for it. That's all. So, yeah. And
I hope everyone vote no on 8. That's the most important one. Save all these jobs and the tax revenue and our rights.
Yeah. All of our rights. So, that's really the piece I want to say about that. I
got a question here too from Sarah. She says, "I'm interested to hear Jeff speak about why he thinks there's a movement now to repeal with all the financial benefits." We kind of did talk about that a little bit, but is there anything else you want to add?
I'll say a little more about that. Yeah, I'll just emphasize that I really believe that this is not an organic movement at all from within Massachusetts. Okay, this really it's funded entirely externally by Washington D.C. operatives, right? By a couple of big, large transfers of money from a bank in the Washington D.C. area, where a political PAC has its account. And it's very hard to get beyond that to find out where all that money came from. But definitely not from here. And, and the chief advocate who has spoken within Massachusetts on behalf of on behalf of this ballot initiative, Wendy Wakeman, just seemed to me clearly to be a shill earning a paycheck, a long-time political operative who is a perfectly respectable, adequate member of her profession. Nothing special as far as I could tell, but definitely a pro. And I will say that the pressure of this question has made the industry nervous, and it's made the industry worry a little bit about some of the scandals and the challenges that they see, all the drama that they see at the regulatory body. So I have heard from a number of industry representatives and just people in the space that they wanted that, around the time, say in this past spring, when this previous set of commissioners left because this new law took effect and we got the new commissioners. I was hearing from a number of people in the industry saying they hoped it was going to be quieter because they're worried about, strengthening the prohibitionists, right? And I think it's more important myself to keep holding regulators to the fire and keep trying to make things better.
Definitely.
The adult use market in Massachusetts is already so much better than not having any regulated market. Believe it or not, it's an improvement over nothing. All right, by
Better than it was too when it started. Like
metrics I
there's
can
better
use.
products out there. Like at least I have like before when it first started, I was like nothing I could recommend. And then I had River Run, and then they went out of business. But I have found some good ones. So there are some
Yeah,
good ones out there. Their prices are better. It's much better than Prohibition, no doubt about it. We got
yeah.
another question here. I wanted you to answer.
Yeah.
Maybe if you want to answer this, can I? Ruthie says,
That's a
"Can I ask
fine
a question?
question.
What is your favorite strain?"
I like that question. I mean, I don't like. I don't have a great answer because I find that I enjoy variety of flavors. I like trying different things. I think what I really like is what's fresh and nicely cured and has really great flavor. I always find a big correlation between the strength of the flavor and how remarkable and unique it is, and how good I feel. I don't know.
Totally, totally. That's all that counts. And a lot. The problem with a lot of the commercial cannabis is doesn't have that.
Some
But
of the
that's what I
commercial
look for
stuff
too.
doesn't have
You
it.
look for
Yeah,
that taste, and that's the stuff.
yeah.
And
So,
and also I
I
think
can.
the other
Oh, yeah,
thing that
go
I
ahead.
look for is the cultivator. Who is cultivating it? I want to know
I
because that's
agree.
like probably the most important question I have is
I
who
agree.
grew it, who manufactured it. But I will answer Ruthie's question a little bit too.
Yeah,
Let's say my favorite strain is anything that's lemon taste, and I love lemon, like super lemon haze.
yeah.
Like I'm a big lemony. So if it's lemon, if it's like citrusy, that's what I like. I like the citrus. I'm like I'm very similar though. I like a lot of variety. I would never stick with the same strain over and over and over again. But
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
see the super lemon haze and it's one of my good growers that I like, that's what I'll be buying. Like,
yeah. And I
but
agree
I
with
don't
you.
see it a lot.
A good way to look at weed, I think, for because I've done some reviewing and tried to, critique it,
Right.
and I've thought about it some. Like, my perspective is that having a favorite strain is like having a favorite food, like hamburger, right? So, right, like you really kind of have to ask, like, how's the hamburger at that place,
Yeah.
right?
Not everybody has the same
Grower
hamburger.
is kind of like the restaurant in a way, or the
Right.
chef, right? So like, that's as far as I'll try to take that analogy because it's not perfect, but it's kind of my way of looking at how to critique it. So like, yeah, you can have a favorite strain, but in a lot of ways, what really makes a difference to me is like, is this a good one? Is this someone put some care into it and made it really nice? So yeah, yeah. Oh, I do love gassy. I like that gassy flavor a lot. So definitely, man. Shout out to that note, to Notes About Fuel. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think maybe we could kind of transition a little bit and talk a little bit more about this drama. I mean, right? Like when, as you said, right? You remember the time when it was a couple of years ago, right? It was basically late summer 2023 that there was a bunch of drama at the CCC, right? There was one meeting that was really dramatic where Chair O'Brien said that Executive Director Collins was going to be leaving before too long. And that spun a lot of people's heads. And then she was suspended not long afterwards and then fired. And then kind of remarkably, right, like a court, a superior court judge, Robert Gordon, overturned that suspension in 2025 in like the early summer, and or it's midsummer, yeah. So and so then it went to the appeals court for a little while. The appeals court dropped it, and like shockingly, Shannon O'Brien returned as chair of the CCC for kind of a second term. A little Trumpian, maybe.
I wouldn't say that about Shannon O'Brien. She's not
maybe in a
Trumpian. Come
very
on. That's not
only
a
in the
that's a
most
low blow for
ironic
her.
of ways. I say it
Yeah.
only in the most ironic of ways.
Yeah, I know.
To
But
draw the comparison.
I gotta say, I have a lot of respect for Shannon O'Brien. She's a good person, and I feel like she really tried to reform this agency, and they effed her over all the way.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned, right, your experience that she was receptive and concerned, right? Like you brought up Lorna McMurray, which was one of the disasters that really got my attention for this industry, right? Like, and helped me understand what was needed. Because, you know, when I started out and founded my little like Institute of Cannabis Science, I mean, I hardly understood what consumer protection really is, honestly, even though I thought I kind of knew. But, you know, like there's so much, right? So yeah. So she's always, you know, when I got more involved and started making some recommendations and expressing concerns about how testing labs are being enforced, and whether accuracy, you know, whether consumers were getting accurate labels, right? And whether they were getting safe product all the time, or if sometimes labs were cheating on tests, or producers were skirting the rules other ways, right? It doesn't, you know, not all through labs, right? But there are a lot of different ways, actually. You know, like over the years, we've seen that there's, at this point, some people have estimated that as much as 90% of the cannabis sold in Massachusetts dispensaries has been treated with irradiation or some kind of a decontamination step like that. Either, sort of like high energy photons. Well, I mean, they're really kind of all high energy photons, whatever they're saying. Whether it's like a sort of an X-ray source, or a vacuum UV source, or like I've heard of processes that use hydrogen peroxide, maybe in gas form. I don't think that that's as popular. I think a lot more of them are radiation. You know, but
back in the day, the first reports ever, the first story I wrote for Dig Boston was about the moldy weed and New England Treatment Access, and the workers were saying they were dunking the buds in the hydrogen peroxide. And that's when they knew there was a problem. And then they were stuffing paper towels up their noses. Everyone had allergies. It was just and the workers came on my show, and they predicted somebody in the industry would die. And within 2 years, Lorna McMurray died. I mean, that said it all. Like how wild west it was at first with the Cannabis Control Commission. And I think when that story broke, when I reported that story, it was wild because she had died like 8 months before I reported it, and OSHA had already investigated and kind of covered it up.
No, but even the commissioners didn't know.
Yeah, and they found out. They found out
from your report.
From me. They found out from me. The commissioners found out about a death in their industry from me, a guy on YouTube. And then the Globe found out, and they were like, Mike Crawford. I couldn't believe it because that was the first time ever. Usually back in the day, I'd write a story. The Globe would kind of steal it and rewrite it and not give me any credit. This time they were like, Mike Crawford, the YouTube host, is right. He's the guy who got the story. I was like, even the Boston Globe is recognizing there's an issue here, and that I'm the guy who broke it, which was amazing to see. But I got so frustrated because it felt like we were getting somewhere. And then I watched this Cannabis Control Commission do nothing except cover it up, except for Shannon O'Brien. She was the only one who seemed to give a shit. And then they get rid of her. They did a coup on her. They didn't like what she was doing because she was exposing too much corruption and fraud, especially with the executive director and all his shenanigans. And he was the main cover-up guy. Sean Collins, now he's a consultant. I feel like, that's my opinion, Sean. Don't sue me over it. It's my opinion. I felt like you did a terrible job, Sean Collins, as the executive director. And I think it's backed up now. I think people see that.
Yeah, well, you know, what I can say is that after all that drama back then and returning to the commission, O'Brien's been pushed out again, and she's filed this new lawsuit. And that's part of what I wrote about and what you have up on your screen right now, right, is this recent lawsuit. And in this lawsuit, she's going back over some of those past events that you and I just discussed, right? And so that's the first really interesting thing to talk about with this lawsuit, is that some of her accusations have already been found basically to be correct.
Yeah.
By a judge and an appeals court. So that's a pretty strong, that's pretty strong, right? Like, and I've read through a lot of the evidence behind that myself, and published about that, right? Like I've been publishing investigative journalism for a couple of years now, right? And there's a lot of evidence there that when I read Judge Gordon's decision, I felt like I had seen a lot of the same things the judge had seen. I definitely felt like he and I shared some common reactions to some things from really different perspectives, right? I am not a lawyer and I'm not a judge, definitely, right? But I knew my own little postage stamp of what events had happened, and then I got a perspective from some of those documents, and it's very clear. One thing I can say for certain is it's very clear that the treasurer was very, very involved in that process of O'Brien leaving. The treasurer involved herself in every part of the investigations and every part of the hearing in a way that a lot of people have found after the fact to be improper. And that was the core of Judge Gordon's objection. Okay, so I don't think I'm going off on a limb to say that the treasurer was deeply involved in that and definitely exposed herself to a lot of accusations of biased treatment of Sean Collins. So, there's just a lot. There's definitely
There's two lawsuits now. I didn't know there was a second lawsuit.
Yeah. And so what I reported just last week that kind of got me going about this is, so then another lawsuit dropped, right? And the thing that's interesting is that, and also in addition, this third person, also from the CCC. So look, there's a lawsuit from Shannon O'Brien. She's a former chair of the CCC. A lawsuit dropped recently from one former attorney who says that he was a longtime whistleblower and has endured lots of improper discipline as a result within the CCC. And there's also an unemployment action where an attorney who was fired while there were no commissioners, which was interesting enough that anybody could be fired while there were no commissioners, because that means no commissioner ordered it. That's right. It had to be an initiative only of staff.
So they basically have three lawsuits. I mean, the Masscat is basically
not
a
really
lawsuit.
A lawsuit yet, but it sounds like he might sue. He is a lawyer after all, and he's currently
unemployment.
So the CCC has contested his unemployment benefits, and so he's fighting them on that. But if you look at if you look at some emails that he shared with me before he appealed to the DUA, and if you look at the termination letter he received, and you look at this lawsuit from this other attorney, poor Don Hubbard, right, you see that a lot of these events are actually connected, and that all of these people, right, all three of these people I mentioned are alleging some overlapping things, which is that the executive director and the legal staff of the CCC did not answer to the commissioners all the time. So that's basically what they are arguing. And they've also, especially Don Hubbard in his lawsuit, has unloaded a lot of other accusations about bad behavior of other top staffers that he witnessed while he was there from about, I think he started in around September of 2023, and he's still an employee there, but he's been on suspensions a few times. So it's a very, it's a very tense situation right now with the CCC, and it's very interesting to have multiple former employees taking legal actions against the commission at the same time and alleging some of the things that they allege about top staff, including the executive director, the general counsel, and the chief people officer, who's like their HR director, right? Actually above the person they call the HR director. So, so it's really serious stuff. And a bunch of it also dovetails with things you talked about way back then, right? The concealment, O'Brien's complaint goes all the way back to the concealment of Lorna McMurray's death.
Right.
Right.
He hid that. He hid it. The executive director didn't want anyone to know that a 27-year-old died, dropped dead at a cultivation site because she didn't have proper ventilation and proper, you know, and nobody cared about her life. And she had been taken out by ambulance twice.
Yeah, and that's the most appalling part of that story is
Yeah.
I still don't understand how and this happened at a True Leaf plant in Holyoke, okay?
Yep.
How could any manager not know that you're in danger of killing your employee when sending her into that room hospitalized her the last time? All right? Like that, you don't have to be a scientist or a doctor, okay? Like
Not rocket
you
science.
already had the evidence that the room
And you already know that your employees are coming
gets
down
sick
with
when she goes into
hives.
that room.
They've got masks on.
Yeah,
All
when
the
she goes into
particles
that
are in the
room,
air. There's
sometimes
no ventilation.
on a
I
stretcher,
mean,
right? But
everybody knew.
okay, let's
Everybody
say
in
what
that building knew
America,
what was going on.
that was so irresponsible. The fact that that has not ended in a really big lawful wrongful death settlement is
Well, there
itself
is a suit. I don't know where it's going, but there was a
yeah, well,
lawsuit
you know,
filed by the mom.
right, when you have a bunch of bad investigation steps, it's not surprising when the lawsuit falters, right? So like I don't know, man. I don't know for sure that that's connected, but like I feel like your lawsuit for wrongful death is really hindered if the whole investigation of the death has been covered up, right? Like you know, that makes it harder. I suspect that a number of investigative steps weren't done properly with that. And
Right.
so that's probably a weakness of the lawsuit. I don't know for sure. I'm really not privy to details of that part, but you know, I see how lawsuits work, and like, you know, like lawsuits are actually a lot like objective journalism, right? If there's a bunch of records of what happened, then they work.
Exactly.
And if there's not,
I think that lawsuit might have legs because the state and even the feds, OSHA,
yeah,
they started doing guidelines for the first time. They did fine,
which is good,
you know.
and,
So we'll see.
you know, this and that brings up another point that I think we're kind of is partly is this is like a very general statement I want to say, and it's partly it's coming from like I said, my very specific work. Like I founded this Institute of Cannabis Science, right? Not because I wanted to go after like juicy stories of government corruption, but because I was caring for consumer rights, okay, and protecting consumers. So, you know, when I've looked a lot into the history of the consumer movement in the past few months as I've been trying to understand what it is I'm doing, and you know, about every 6 months I get impatient with how things are going, and I spend some time refocusing and trying to refigure out, well, how could this get more effective? What could I do that's better? And this time I spent a lot of that energy thinking about the consumer movement, and I read again about, and I actually the best thing I did was I watched a documentary about the whole rise of meat packing. And that helped me a lot because it actually reminded me a lot of this moment in history for cannabis. All right. Because there's sort of a similar thing that happened. See, about 140 years ago, this guy invented this thing called the refrigerated rail car. All right. And that changed everything about meat for humans, like forever. Okay. Because for the first time ever, like what used to happen with meat was you went to a butcher shop somewhere near your home, and you got a piece of meat that came from a cow that was raised not far away and slaughtered locally, right? Or another animal, right? Because you get something very local, right? And it's very small scale distribution. And then with this refrigerator rail car, some asshole had the idea that you could kill all the cows in Chicago and process them there, right? And that'd be way more efficient, right? Like, and so then that's what they did, and they nearly all the cows, nearly all the beef in America came from one neighborhood in Chicago, which is ultra foul, right? Is the stockyards, right? And yeah, and so that process of going from this very distributed network of agriculture is a lot like the process that we're going to now, where a whole bunch of our weed that came from bespoke networks of small cultivators and small distributors, or else like there was the commercial cannabis, right? Which was the Mexican dirt weed, right? That was basically commercial. and the Beasters, right? So there were a couple of commercial networks. They
Yeah,
were
the Beasters are Canadian. You know that Mexican stuff too. I've had some stories about from some gangsters talking about where it all came from. There was like they had the biggest field you've ever seen. It was like
It was,
came from one like huge field that was like it was huge.
It was
Apparently, it was like
I know
miles.
Yeah, I know somebody who's told me about smuggling, pallets, right? Yeah. So pallets of it, right? So I mean, so there were a couple of larger networks, right? But so now we're seeing, and those also probably concealed lots and lots of human abuse, right? I mean, you figure, right? I mean, it's like done in some place in Mexico where nobody goes, right? Like, what do you think they do to the workers? Like, you think it's nice?
Oh, they don't get overtime.
Yeah, it probably wasn't the best conditions, right? So it's worth noting, right? So
OSHA's not there.
As you push all this stuff together, there's just a bunch of new hazards, right? And it's the same way with weed production, right? As you commercialize it and you go to commercial scale, the risks change. That's true for every kind of agriculture, actually. Commercial agriculture is different than home agriculture, right? Like
totally.
Yeah.
And you have different risks. I mean, you grow a few different plants
different
at home in a closet or even like on a deck like I'm doing.
Yeah.
You don't have any risk of inhaling shit and dying. But on a commercial level, where you have thousands of plants in one area and there's not proper ventilation, and then you take these people and you put them into a smaller room and tell them to grind it up and create joints, and the shit's everywhere in the air, and there's no ventilation, that creates some problem.
Right?
Yeah,
because it's the quantity of the exposure and like how much and how long, and that it's all day instead of just for an hour once in a while, right? Like
it builds up. It builds up when you're constantly.
Things are cumulative with your things with your immune system are cumulative. So
and so was it cumulative in the building too. Like some of these old buildings that they picked were not good for it.
A lot of these buildings were chosen very poorly for this.
Yeah, and it's funny. And you can't even blame the owners for that, because the system was set up where people had to basically get what they could get for a location, because everyone was bidding on those locations. There were so few of them zoned.
Right? If you said you were weed, they thought you had lots of money.
Yeah, so you had to take what you could get. Basically, the locations, the whole system systemically was set up for issues.
For lots of disaster, but also, I just want to say again, this is normal. Every time we do something new, especially when we rush it like this in our society, there's a bunch of stumbling and messes. All right,
learning curve.
This is normal. The thing that wasn't normal that you and I are complaining about with the CCC,
that the government wasn't willing to address the issues and fix them. Yeah,
these rookie regulators with the first draft had plenty of room to say, "Hey, we're learning this for the first time too." Remember, they had that phrase they would use all the time: "We're building the airplane as we fly it," right? Which is like, it's cute the first time, but like, if you're not receptive to criticism, it's not cute anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
And if you're afraid that anything,
cover up every mistake.
If you cover up, that's it.
I'm building the airplane while I'm flying it is bullshit, man.
Yeah. Instead of addressing the issues, doing the cover up. That's the problem.
Yeah. So
anything in life, like if you can't address your issues, you have a problem.
Yeah, like you gotta take your lumps. You gotta take accountability.
Yeah.
You gotta come to your commissioners and say, "Hey guys, this thing happened, and I'm afraid to tell you about it. I'm freaking out over here, but I'm gonna tell you about it, and I don't know what we're gonna do. All right, I'm gonna try my best to work on it, but like I'm really scared about what this could mean for us, because I didn't see this coming, and we're not prepared for it, and I don't know how to handle all of it. Right? Like that would have been great in a situation like that. Someone died. That would be accountability that I think we didn't get. And I think that was really what I was seeing. I mean, it turns out I've actually been going through my old records recently, and like I wrote a couple of things I completely forgot about. And one of them was I found this just recently. I wrote this letter before Shannon O'Brien was suspended. So it was earlier in 2023. And I wrote this same thing, like, Shannon O'Brien seems to be the only person who's listening to me. And I'm really worried about some of the things I'm seeing, right? Like, and I was complaining a lot about FOIA requests because I kept on asking for testing data from the CCC, and like first they gave me the first thing that happened, actually, the very first thing that happened, this is my very first communication ever with the CCC, was I put in a FOIA request for testing data. And the thing that happened was the very next day, I got a phone call on my cell from the attorney who handled it. And she said, usually I ignore this shit when it comes from nobodies. But since you're from Harvard, I'm going to help you.
Wow.
That
I
was
guess
what
I was a nobody.
the
I guess
CCC.
it's funny because I used to do FOIAs and they would ignore me. And here I am. I broke the biggest freaking story in cannabis ever in the history of the Cannabis Control
That's like,
Commission. And they treated me like I was a nobody. And meanwhile,
all
I
of
have
it, man.
the,
And that's
the
like
chair, the
that's like
commissioner on
Grant
my show.
too.
I mean, this is how fucked up
Yeah.
that whole commission was.
That's like Grant Smith Ellis also, who has done some very important reporting a couple of times about the CCC and has honestly faced real retaliation from them. You know, like, and you know, and I mean that guy obviously makes no money on this, right? I mean, come on, like it's stupid to like. It's really it's nuts to me. I was remarking to someone recently about this because like Chris Ferrone also, right? Like, I mean, that guy's like a journalism professor who like right, and has a nonprofit and like hustles a bunch to like make money, right? And like, you know, this story we were talking about that he published last week, it's like, you know, is like he got it up on his website like right after he was at like his kid's first day of school, you know? It's like it's a bunch of just regular guys who are like left to do some of this important reporting because the square world just doesn't care about us, right? Like the you know, outlets like the Globe, I know some of the journalists there and some of them are trying hard, but like it's tough to get stories like this out of the Globe about cannabis. They are nervous about taking the risk. They're nervous about publishing something wrong and getting sued by a weird industry that they don't really understand yet. Like, yeah, it's been really tough. So, yeah.
Freeze Frame I recall Mike talking about people getting sick and dying regarding cannabis. Not sure where it occurred. It was at a place in
Yeah, that was
True Leaf,
right?
in Holyoke.
Lorna McMurray.
And since then, True Leaf is a big time Florida company, the biggest basically in Florida for medical cannabis.
Yeah.
There's a lot of corruption in their past through the husband who went to federal prison of the CEO. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of craziness with True Leaf. And it's funny because we chased them out of the state. They fled the state. They were so upset about my reporting. I literally chased them out of the state. I got them to leave Massachusetts. It wasn't worth their while anymore, Freeze Frame. They couldn't deal with us. The Globe showed up for a day. That was funny. Dan, remember Dan? Got Kim Rivers going into her SUV. That was hilarious.
Yeah. Kim Rivers is now, she's quite influential now. I hear that I've heard that she has strong influence in the Trump White House.
Yeah. And with Ron DeSantis too. She's buddies with Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
She funded Ron DeSantis, but Rob DeSantis effed her over. It's so funny.
Yeah, well, you know, but the thing is, True Leaf has one of a few limited licenses in Florida, which for medical. Which let me tell you, Florida is a really big state, dude. So like having one of the limited licenses there is printing money. So you know. I'm sure Kim Rivers wants Florida to go wreck so that they can make more money. But
they try to put it on the ballot. I think it's on the ballot this year.
You know, it's not like she's doing bad now with DeSantis. So you know, like it's a. But yeah, those dynamics are always interesting, right? You look for those faults, just like the prohibitionists look for our fault lines. All right, you look for those. That's your strategy, right? So, you know, like this is, you know, it just turns out that actually it's often the case, right? Like when you have some new field that crops up, right? Like it takes a while for it to kind of like get legitimized. So like when there's cannabis and a lot more people starting to do cannabis science, right? Like not all of them are going to do it well enough. right? And this is when a bunch of people start regulating cannabis, they're going to make a lot of mistakes early on, right? Like
Right.
a lot of that's actually normal, and if you can be accountable, you can manage it better. So, you know, what we see now is that we're at a pretty dramatic point, right? Because like I said, and like you noted, right, there's more than one legal action now, right? And we start seeing that they're starting to connect a little bit more. And another thing that's interesting is that Shannon O'Brien got really good lawyers this time.
Yeah, she's not messing around, and she's investing her money too, like her retirement money in this. So
yeah. So
it sucks they did that to her too, because she had such a good reputation, and they really damaged her for no good reason. You know, they called her racist.
yeah,
I mean, that's what they did to Shannon O'Brien, folks. You know, just so
Well,
I want you to know.
and that-
Let
and
me
that-
let me add on to this,
Oh, dude,
because for people who aren't paying attention, Shannon O'Brien was a treasurer of Massachusetts. She left the political field. She's an attorney. She got hired by our treasurer, Deb Goldberg, to clean up the Cannabis Control Commission. She got hired to be the executive director. She went in there and saw all these problems, and she wanted to actually fix them and tried to fix them. And what happened to her is the people at the Cannabis Control Commission, including the executive director and some of these other people, started stabbing her in the back and started filing complaints, workplace complaints. One of them saying that she was racist. That's how they get people out. They claim that you're a racist. And then the treasurer fired her, basically. And she sued and she won. She won her job back. And now she has another lawsuit that's against the treasurer herself. And, you know, from everything I've seen, this is how it works over there. You know, in a lot of these state agencies, if you try to rock the boat, they'll file bogus HR complaints against you, calling you a racist.
Yeah, and actually, you know, one of the things that's been interesting to me as I've looked into this stuff is that, like, I think when we imagine how government corruption works, we imagine like a single conspirator mastermind, right? And we imagine like a briefcase full of money, right? And what I find as I dig into this stuff is that a lot of it is way more petty and small.
Right.
Like,
It's a culture. I'm glad you said that. It's not just one person. It's kind of cultural.
Yeah, it becomes kind of cultural, and it's small things that people want, like, because here's the kind of situation that can be very motivating for a person. I have just finished my job as a town administrator, and that was a pretty good job. I was making north of 200K, right? I live in this really nice house. My kids are like in high school or heading off to college, right? I want to keep all of this, right? How am I going to get another 200 plus K per year job without having to move with my skills? Right? I need to, right? Like there's only certain jobs for that, right? Like kind of a political job, right? Without having to move, right? If I'm working at this place and I don't have, and I'm not vested in the pension yet, but I'm 8 years in, right? I really don't want to lose this job in the next 2 years, right? And so they start pressuring me to do stuff I don't want to do, right? These are the kinds of things that happen. And the other thing that happens that I think, there's always been a lot of rumors of this, and I think this was like the operational failure within the CCC that kind of ties a lot of this together, right? I said that there's a lot about the testing and the safety and the enforcement, the worker safety, what the consumers were actually getting, right? Well, that's because the investigation and enforcement division of the CCC was a terrible failure. Almost from the whole time it was there, as far as I can tell, there's just a huge amount of evidence at this point that they never had a capable investigations and enforcement division. It's basically the largest division and just mostly ran amok, right? And so I believe that, you know, this is, and actually some of this is enlightened. Some of my thoughts about this are enlightened from talking to Shannon and reading her history, right? As you mentioned, she became famous for exposing. She exposed the big cover up of a huge budget overrun of the Big Dig. Remember all the way back then?
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah, and
So,
she cleaned up the treasurer's
yeah,
office
and
too
she
when she
cleaned
was
up the
there.
treasury and the lottery, right? And
The
what she
lottery,
found
which
in
was a
those
big scandal
places,
back then. Yep.
what she found in those places were poorly supervised employees who were abusing the system to enrich themselves and get benefits, right? And abuse the system, right? And do favors, right? So that's a normal thing that happens in government agencies. And so when you have a big investigations and enforcement division that is incompetently managed from day one by one tyrant and then a second tyrant, neither one of which was probably qualified for the job at all, right? Then you have a lot of poorly supervised employees who say whatever they want to shake down licensees, right? And one of the phrases I've heard from a number of licensees is that when their inspector came on site, he said, "Whatever you do, don't go over my head."
Yeah,
Right?
don't complain. Don't complain about me.
Characteristic, So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
heard
it's like a mafia. That's the way they
heard,
treated
yeah,
it.
yeah, I
And
heard
I'm glad you brought up that, the
padded hours
investigation,
and stuff like
be-
that.
because I exposed that too. Like
Yeah,
it wasn't just True Leaf. There was that other place, forget the name of it now. The big
you think
brand.
greatest hits with
What is it?
Are you thinking of greatest hits and the whistleblower Matt?
No. I'm talking about the mold and the lack of
Oh yeah,
investigation.
yeah.
It's
A
on my
number of
Substack actually.
a number of others had trouble, but especially I'm struggling with
The
a
big
name.
one.
Yeah, I'm struggling with a name that I really
I
want.
keep thinking of Train. It wasn't. Hold on, let me find it.
I mean, there have been several.
Strain.
Train had trouble. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
That one. There were some others too, but like I kept
Yeah.
posting. They were like doing an investigation, right? And then it'd be
Yeah.
like, it's totally fine. And then the employees are all sending me pictures of the mold.
Yeah.
And they're saying, oh, the investigators didn't want to see this. They didn't look at this. And then they sent me reports on strain specifically. They sent me an independent environmental consultant came in and talked about all the mold and all the levels and all that stuff. And nothing was done. It turns out the Cannabis Control Commission, literally, this is what they did. This is so whacked out with strain specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Strain had a hole in its roof where water was coming down.
Yep.
And so you got mold within the entire building.
Yep.
Yep. And so the employees are sending me pictures of the mold anonymously. I still don't know who sent them. Whoever did, God bless you. I love that I don't even know who sent them. I love that. Excuse me. And I knew they were legit because they sent me the environmental reports. When I got the environmental reports, I'm like, this is legit. This person knows. And so basically what happened is the Cannabis Control Commission investigators that were supposed to go in and go to the strain cultivation location and investigate the mold, they said, no, this is too dangerous. This is too dangerous for our employees. So we're going to do a virtual inspection of their location. Think about that, people. They did a Zoom inspection because it was too dangerous for the Cannabis Control Commission employees to go in and investigate it. But guess what they did the next day? They closed down the investigation and said, oh, employees, the $15 employees can go back to their jobs.
Right.
Nothing needs to change. It's too dangerous for us to investigate. For you guys that are only making $15 an hour without a state pension, you can go work in this. That's what they actually did. That's how fucked up this Cannabis Control Commission has been.
And we're laughing, but it's not funny at all that it's not funny that problems like this don't get addressed and fixed, right?
And that's how wild it is. Like if they say it's too dangerous for them to investigate, how are they letting the employees go back? How are they just saying investigations closed? We got a remediation program. We're not going to do anything to them. I mean, that is just how wild this has been. And the employees tell us they still aren't protected. They're still getting sick at these locations, Yeah. That was a couple years ago. I don't know what's happened since. I gave up. I was so frustrated. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. But that's the type of stuff I was exposing.
Yeah, I think that what we're still seeing and what we're hoping to see a change in, right? We're ever hopeful, right? We're always hoping for improvements, and I don't see all negative signs. I've seen a couple of positive steps, but I really want to see improvements to their investigation processes at the CCC. I really want to see investigations get wrapped up quicker. I think a huge part of the problem is that there's just not much deterrent value if you have an investigation that drags on for 4 years and then ends kind of inconclusively. Like it's just
ends immediately. I mean, that one, yeah, I just found the story. Here's the one that I covered. This was back in 2021.
Yeah.
This is the report that is it on the screen yet? Did I put it up? Let's put it up. Oh, hold on, sorry.
Oh,
this is the report that I had that an employee had sent me.
Oh, wow.
Did I scroll up? What happened to it? Hold on. Here it is. So, and Mass Live did cover this. Thank God for Mass Live. The Monson Board of Health, they wanted to do more inspections. The town wanted to do more inspections, and the CCC said, "Nope, we cover it. We're taking care of this." And then they shut down the investigation. And I mean, look at these statements.
So the CCC fights for jurisdiction.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I've never heard that before. You know, that's a really interesting case, right? Like, because as we've been saying, right? Like, they're terrible at investigating.
Yep.
That's the one thing I can say.
This was the report. This was the report that was prepared.
I can make without any fear of libel. It's just an objective fact that they have not succeeded at much with investigations. So if they push to take control of investigations and prevent other entities, that's really terrible. Right? I mean, I got to imagine anyone would be better at investigating health violations than the CCC right now. You know, in fact,
even in the office in the med.
I've spoken to a couple of former employees, and one told me he was an investigator for the CCC. This person, they told me that it was like being a health inspector, but if you see something really bad in a restaurant kitchen, there's nothing you can do. It's
That's pretty much how they handle it. Look at this. This report. This report shows that even in the women's bathroom and the men's bathroom and the offices, even there was mold. Like
visible black mold.
Yeah, I mean, this report shows you there was mold. Yeah. The mold in the air as identified at 5 locations within the facility.
Yeah.
This was what was going on. This is why people were getting sick at these grow facilities. And the CCC covered it up. They shut it down. They didn't shut down the facility. Look at this picture. Look at that mold.
Yeah.
That is that's disgusting.
And so I feel like this is one place where we can learn a lot, actually, from that example I mentioned before, which is meat packing, right? Because how do you protect the workers and the consumers from meat distribution, right? You actually inspect the plant. You inspect the facility, right? That's the main way you manage it. And I think that now we're at this stage where really a whole lot of the cannabis in Massachusetts comes through just a handful of facilities. And so we need to look at those facilities like meat packing plants, right? We need to be inspecting them directly. You can't rely on product testing after the fact to protect the workers. All right. And product testing after the fact is never going to be efficient enough because, there's one facility and then there's a whole bunch of products coming out of it. Right. And you're testing some subset of those products as they come out. Right. But I could just manage the whole environment. That's what I should be managing the environment.
Yeah, and there should be a lot of ventilation. Yeah. I mean, it's that simple too. Like people overthinking it too. Like this is how simple it was. The Cannabis Control Commission could have just come in there and said, you know what? You need to get rid of this mold. You need to clean it out, and you need to get ventilation. You need to ventilate the place.
They need to learn.
It's that simple. Air quality, and you're going to do air quality testing.
Inspectors. They need to learn to empower their inspectors to be like good health inspectors who know the right stuff to look for, right? Just like a good health inspector, what are they? They're putting a thermometer in the meat, right? They're checking the corners of the walk-in for mold, right? That's what a good health inspector is doing. They're looking to see if oil has been cleaned regularly. Right.
And this place hired someone independently to do that for them. Yeah. And they failed. They failed. And that's what the Cannabis Control Commission should say. You know what? You can't start selling this product until you get somebody to do a test like this company did of the air and the mold and
Yeah,
come
and you need
back
to
and
have
tell us that it's
environmental
clean.
monitoring,
Yeah.
right? So yeah,
That should be part of this whole process now. With the
yeah,
cultivation sites, they should be required to do environmental
yeah.
testing
So they need to
on the
have a
air.
lot of and they need to have environmental inspections, right?
Yeah.
They need to have right now basically historically their inspection team has been empowered to issue a bunch of ticky-tacky notices of deficiency for stuff like camera angles and stuff. Some of this might be important security and stuff, but a lot of it seems was really technicalities focused away from public health and safety,
Yeah. The stupid
and
shit.
you need to have people who are empowered to go in there like a health inspector and say, look, I see the black mold in your curing room. All right. I see that. You can't do anything here until that's fixed.
Right.
You need to remediate the facility instead of remediating the weed. Okay. So that's my big push now, is that we're past the point where we can fool ourselves into thinking that some third party testing is going to protect all of us. Right? Like, that's not going to be the full answer. That is not how any other product category, that is not the linchpin of product safety for any other product category. Third party testing is important in some other industries, but it is far from the linchpin, right? Environmental monitoring is way more important. And
Totally. Environment. That's what needs to be monitored. There is no environmental monitoring requirement for these places, which is ridiculous. There should be.
No. And that should be a big part of what the investigations and enforcement team is actually doing at the CCC, right? Is learning how to investigate health, investigating it like a commercial kitchen, right? Or a pharmaceutical production facility, right? That's the kind of thing you're doing here. So, and that's important for protecting the workers and the consumers. So, you really need, you really need this stuff. You need as much protection as possible. You need, it ultimately comes down to management, organization, professionalism, right? So, and that's been some of what's been alleged, right? These recent lawsuits that have dropped, and other allegations have been that some hiring processes at the CCC have been improper, that there were times where people had multiple roles that they really shouldn't have, that created conflicts of interest for them, that they don't always hire the most qualified candidate for a job, and that some people have gotten jobs as favors. So those are all allegations that have been made that help us to understand how things like this could happen and what kinds of problems you need to address in order to fix it, right? I mean, it's a big job sometimes, right? There is one good thing that I will say, all right? So the CCC has recently done a secret shopper program, and I do think that is a good plan, all right? They tested, my gosh, let me see if I can remember the numbers properly. I think it was 63 products, all right, off the shelf, which is a pretty good sampling, all right? So they said that they came from a total of 62 cultivators, and for perspective, they said there's around 150 active cultivation licenses in the state that are currently producing. So, so it's a pretty representative sample of around a third of the marketplace, right? Or around a third of the cultivators, at least, right? We'll put it like that. So, they only tested for THC. They set a pretty wide boundary for what was an acceptable tolerance of THC, and they sent each product to the lab that originally tested it. So presumably, if that lab is fudging their numbers in some really systematic way, right, they might not find it, right? But in fact, about 20% of the products they tested, it was 12 out of 63 failed, even with really generous kind of auditing standards, right? So, I think it goes to show, first of all, there's a big problem with THC. And I've talked about this before, I've had one time where I buy 2 packs that are the same thing. It was like they sold on the website. It said it was on the website they said it was a quarter, but they actually give me 2/8 bags, right? So it's exactly the same thing. It's the same batch, everything, right? And one of them is just like larf. It's like moss, right? And you know what they did? They took the unripe buds, right? They took shitty buds that are vampires that they should have plucked, right? And they put them in with the batch, right? Those ones they test as like, they test as like 13% or something, 10% THC, right? Because they're garbage, right? You look at them, there's nothing on there, no trichomes. So so sometimes things like that, it's consistency problems that people are having where they need to, up their consistency or their quality game, right? Other times it's deliberately diluting the buds that they put in pre-rolls and adding in a bunch of trim, right? And that's a choice that someone makes. I mean, you don't have to do that, right? Like, I would argue none of us should be smoking trim at this point. Like, there's enough bud, okay? There's enough bud in Massachusetts that we should never have to smoke trim, all right? Extract your trim. You'll have more distillate, okay? Then you won't have to invert in distillate anymore, okay? So, yeah, just extract your trim. Don't put it in pre-rolls, all right? So, yeah.
Yeah, Belanger is saying that the thing that they don't like is the dispensary says the nug is 35% THC and it's actually 19%. And that's the thing too. Like even like you said, even if within the bud, the top of the bud can be 35%, but those lower buds might be 15. That's why I like Maine. They will tell you if it's a top bud or a lower bud a lot of times, which is helpful.
It depends a lot on how people cultivate too. Like some people tell me about their way of pruning their plants, right, kind of minimizes that effect, right? So I know there's a lot of different tricks people can do, and there's not one standard weed plant that tells us, everything, right? Like, but yeah, sometimes there's variability, and some producers divide things up into batches. They'll say a pack will say these are the smalls, right? Yeah. I think that's like, that's all we're asking for is the basic respect, right? Don't make up a number. Don't mix in trim and not tell me, right? Don't do these things don't irradiate all your weed because you don't want to fix your mold problem. All right. Like that's disrespectful to the consumer. All right. I'm the customer here. All right. I got to tell you, we hear a lot about like this, more than $1 billion annual industry that we've built here, right? All those dollars came from guys like me. All right. I'm the one buying the weed.
Right.
So,
me too.
We should count a lot, right? Like we should be able to be able to return products if they're not good, right? We should be able to have accurate labels, right? We do the best we can. I mean, I get that it's never going to be perfect, right? I get that it's buds, okay? Like it's weed. That's cool. I get that it's not the most dangerous thing in the world also. That's really good, right? To point out every once in a while. Like, I'm not saying it's the most dangerous thing in the world, but you still got to regulate it right, okay? Otherwise, it's not fair. It's not fair to people who follow rules, It's not fair to people who expect the number to mean something.
Totally.
Yeah.
What would your final thoughts be tonight? Like, what would you want to wrap it up with tonight and kind of promote yourself too? Promote yourself as well, Jeff.
Shoot, that's embarrassing, man. But like, I would say, like, look, if there's one thread I've seen, like, I'm really surprised. So, like, I told you, I looked into the history of consumer protection. In consumer protection, you often end up on the opposite side of some people in government and especially a lot of people in business. And in consumer protection, sometimes people get retaliation. So my favorite is this story, right? Ralph Nader is very famous for consumer protection, right? He published a book called Unsafe at Any Speed that advocated for seatbelts, amongst other things. That's like that's the very quick thing, right? People remember, oh yeah, the seatbelts thing, right? Well, what he was talking about actually was that in the boardrooms of major auto manufacturers, especially General Motors in particular, he had some specific examples, they would ignore safety data. And they would actually ignore consumer demand for additional safety features, and they would cover it up. So they deliberately covered up evidence that people wanted more safety features in cars and wanted changes in how cars were made to make them safer, right? And so this is part of a book where he really exposed them. And GM got so mad that they hired hookers and tried to catch him in a sting to embarrass him and discredit him.
Johnny Trueleaf didn't try to do that to me.
He got a friend in Congress.
God damn.
Hearing the CEO of GM had to admit under oath before Congress that they had staked out Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader sued them, got like $400K, and started one of his institutes off of it. Started one of his organizations off of it. So this is the stuff that happens. And I will tell you, man, I am amazed. The stuff I have done sometimes, I have gotten my own little bits of retaliation, like even me, things I did that I thought didn't matter that much. They push back, man, and
Oh, they do. They do. I know. I felt they were. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's funny,
and I believe that's what happened with Shannon O'Brien.
Yeah, totally.
I have kept on. As time has gone by, I have continued to see evidence again and again. And I was talking about it. And I even, a month after the treasurer suspended O'Brien, I actually sent a letter to the treasurer with a chart that showed the potency inflation on a bunch of pre-rolls and saying that I'd been talking to and something about testing data. And I said, I'd been talking to Shannon O'Brien. She was like the only person that was receptive. And then she got pushed out. And I'm afraid it's about this because it seems like these kinds of problems get covered up a lot at the CCC. And years later, here we are in the same place, like saying, boy, it still seems like they try to cover up all these problems, don't want to ever admit it, can't admit that all their problems in investigations and enforcement, can't admit they ever did anything less than perfect, even though that would be totally fine, right? And yeah, so here we are, right? And she has made, even O'Brien has made that a part of her lawsuit. She's pretty clear that she feels like she got retaliation for trying to air their dirty laundry and make it better.
No question about it. No question about it.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, and thanks again for flashing the CanSci website. Definitely check us out, Institute of Cannabis Science. We have a lot of great stuff. We've been updating the website recently. We just got some great data about product recalls, which is a subject I didn't talk about, but is very important because product recalls are one of the main ways that you make producers directly responsible for the end result of their process. Okay. And we have all this product recall data that came from this fantastic person named Jamie Toth, who she's been accumulating it for years. She's a great data analyst and database wizard. So there's I want people to definitely check that stuff out on our website. And you'll also see that we are opposing question 8, asking everybody to vote no. And again, mark your calendar, put it on your Google Calendar, or order your mail ballot today. Okay? All right? Make your plan. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. I'm going to tell you.
Vote no on 8. Vote no on 8. Save the jobs and the tax revenue, please.
I will ask you to please vote no on 8, okay? Please go all the way down to the bottom of the ballot, past the judges to where they get to the ballot questions, okay? Please vote no, all right? And please vote, everybody, all right? Like, I've become a really passionate believer in journalism and democracy, all right? And the two things we most need are the attention that journalists bring to functions of our government and what's really happening, and democracy, people voting and saying how they feel and not being afraid to say how they feel. So, that's my message, man. Any closing thoughts or questions?
I'm just trying to pin the right thing. Apparently we pinned the wrong thing today. So I'm trying to fix something here.
She got it. She's like she said, she just
I don't know.
had a little accident.
All right. I think we have the right thing pinned. All right, cool.
Oh,
yeah. I mean,
and
thank you. I guess my last question would be, if people want to help,
thanking me.
If people want to help out, how can they help out with this consumer issue, the worker safety, and saving cannabis in Mass. How can they help? How
So
can they
look,
get involved?
for cannabis in Mass, all right, vote no. And there is a political organizing committee that does need donations. All right. And for the Institute of Cannabis Science, all right, what you can do, follow us on LinkedIn. All right. Follow us on Instagram. All right. On LinkedIn, you can find me at Jeff Rawson. The Institute of Cannabis Science is easy to find on LinkedIn. And on Instagram, it's cansci.org, all one word, CANNSCIDOTORG. And and if you go to our website, you'll see that we have a nice little link to PayPal where you can make a donation to the Institute of Cannabis Science and support science and journalism that protect consumers. All right. It's really important that this be done independently. One of the things I've seen recently is that more companies are talking about consumer rights as if they are public interest organizations, but they are not. They are for-profit companies, and they are using discussions of consumer rights to sell their products a lot of times, or to make themselves look better to regulators, because that's their best strategy for their business. So they could still be good people, but they are supporting their businesses and not necessarily looking after the best interests of consumers. Often this isn't really, it doesn't look so nefarious. It's just a business person sees the whole world in terms of like a hammer looking for nails. All right. They see the whole world as problems that their business could solve. And that's their job, to do that so that they make money. All right. But that's our job, is to take care of consumers without trying to build a business. So please support us. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you so much, Mike. This is really awesome,
Thank
man.
you. Thank you for being here. Jeff Rawson. We call you Doctor. Dr. Jeff Rawson here.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. You're a scientist. I love that.
Chemistry. Yeah.
Yeah. Harvard guy trying to help us consumers. Yeah.
So,
well, I wish you the best of luck. And again, if people want to support you, definitely check out the website. Also, like you said, you're on Instagram. You're big on LinkedIn. People should find you on LinkedIn as well. Dr. Jeff, I want to thank you so much and hope you have a great rest of your weekend and a great week upcoming here.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to thank you to the chat. You guys have been awesome.
Awesome. We'll talk to you soon, Jeff. Good luck.
All right. Take care, Mike.
Bye now. My name is Mike Crawford. This is the Young Jerks. If this is your first time here, please like and subscribe. Unfortunately, we're not on Twitter tonight. We usually get a lot of people on Twitter, but Twitter is being funky with us. Somebody reported us. It was so stupid, too. It's such a stupid post. It was a throwaway post. But they said we shared private information, which we did not, of course. It's a bogus complaint. And Twitter, I don't know. It's going to take us days before they review it. I could just take the hit. But I'm not going to take the hit for something we didn't do. So we're not on Twitter right now. Congratulations to the trolls for shutting down free speech. You know, they talk about free speech a lot. But there is no free speech from these trolls that don't like us. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, it was a good interview. I hope everyone has a great night. We're going to be doing a show on Tuesday night covering a murder mystery, with another podcaster, actually. I'll maybe talk more about it, but make sure you come check us out on Tuesday night. And again, I'm going to be having retired Mass State Police Larry Smith back on the show very soon to expose some corruption in the Lawrence Police Department. We've got a lot going on here at the Young Jerks. Make sure you like and subscribe. Follow us, please. No drama tonight. No drama show. I want to thank Sarah in Shock and Horror, who sent $10, and she said, thank you for this conversation. Thank you for being here, Sarah. There was also like a Venmo or a Cash App that came in recently. I'll throw that up if anyone wants to kick in, just in case, since I'm mentioning it. But I do want to thank the person who made a donation, because I didn't see it the other day. Let me make sure I get that up. Hold on one second. I'm catching up. Patricia, she is oxymoron. She says, appreciate the never-ending dedication to your jerk community. That's from Oxymoron. Thank you so much for the $20, Oxymoron. Much appreciated. Anne made a funny joke. She said, but did you do a tour insisting that everyone thank you for breaking the story, Mike? No, I did not. I did not do a tour. I did not ask everyone to thank me for it. You know what I did is I thanked the workers. The workers were the heroes in that story. The workers, a lot of them risked their jobs. Some of them got fired, actually. The New England Treatment Access, they actually fired an employee for coming on my show. And January 20 of 2018, I wrote an article for Dig Boston titled, "Is There Moldy Cannabis in Massachusetts?" It featured former employees from New England Treatment Access turned whistleblowers, one of them who said mold was an issue at both Netta's Franklin Cultivation Center and the Northampton Dispensary. Some of those dispensary workers also predicted someone was going to die. And unfortunately, then there was a death. There was a death. It was Lorna McMurray, 27 years old. The workers were the heroes in that. And I'm still upset about it because I don't think anything's changed since then. They definitely do need environmental protection studies done at some of these cultivation sites. They could do that easily. Not the Jenks sent 250 joules. Thank you so much for the MVP super chat tonight. Thank you so much. There were 2 super chats. I really appreciate both of you. Sarah and Not That Gen X, thank you so much for coming through tonight. Makes a big difference. Yeah, you're laughing. I know what you're laughing at. That's good. It's good to see everyone here. I appreciate the ones who show up for these shows. I know it's not true crime. I know it's not Karen Reed. I know it's not Aiden Carney, Turtle Boy. That's what a lot of people like to come out for. It's not drama. But I appreciate everyone who's here. You're the real ones. You're the real jerks. Erin Murphy, thank you so much. Freeze Frame. I like Freeze Frame. Freeze Frame is always here. Much appreciate you for being here, Freeze Frame. Yeah, if you can hype the video later, that'd be nice. You know what I'm thinking about doing right now? If I can find it. We might get in trouble for this anyways, because some of it has music, but I don't even care. Let's see if I can find one of the old episodes with Lorna McMurray. Yeah, maybe this one. This one I was freaking the fuck out too. Just play this one. This is Lorna McMurray. This is what was so friggin' amazing. Is that at one point True Leaf had come out and said there was no reason we would believe that Lorna McMurray would die, and she had been taken out by ambulance twice, not once but twice. Then we found her post online. Been hidden, kind of because they were friends only, so a lot of people in the public didn't see them. And then we found the family showed me her post. They showed me her post, and she had called it out before she passed away. And you also have the mom who called into my show. So that's what we're going to end it with. This is like a 19-minute, oh, actually, it's like 36-minute video. Why not play it? I think we're going to play this tonight so people can see exactly what was going on here. This is Lorna McMurray before she died calling it out. Calling out True Leaf, calling out the industry. This is the girl who's no longer here. 27 years old she was at that point. This is what she posted before she died on her Facebook.
All right, we have Laura on the phone. Lorna's mom.
I just want to thank everybody for standing up for my daughter. I just can't get over the outpour of how much they're just there. And I just thank God that they're speaking out, because this should have never happened to her. And I'm so thankful everybody's just standing up beside us.
And this has been really a difficult time for you. 4 days.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about on the news tonight, 4 days. That,
I sat there holding her hand for 4 days on life support, just praying she'd come back to me. But now we all know she didn't. But this has got to stop. This has got to stop now. I can't see anybody going through this again. They've got to do something, because I can't see another family go through this. She was my everything, my whole world. She was my only child, and it should have never happened. And they know it should have never happened.
what would you like to see the Cannabis Control Commission do about this?
They need to step up. They need to step up and do what's right. Nobody should have to lose their life for some industry. And that's what happened to my daughter. She lost her life to this industry. And they need to admit it. They took her away when I didn't have to lose her. And they let it happen, knowing that it could happen. And I had no idea. I should have been protecting my daughter. And I didn't even know I didn't protect my daughter. And they didn't protect my daughter.
Tonight we're live. Mike Crawford, Young Jerks. We got the words of Lorna. It's very weird to be covering this story all this time, and then you get the messages. We got a lot of messages, but we didn't expect to get these messages. We heard about these messages. They're not messages really, but they are sort of. They're posts. They're posts from Lorna herself. We're posting them up on the screen. People can see them. We're sharing them. We've got more of them. We've got the death certificate. We've got a number of new documents that just came out this weekend. And I wasn't planning on doing a show tonight, but because of this, we just decided to go live. We want to get this out to the world. We've started sharing some of this documentation. This basically needed to come out as soon as possible, because True Leaf has painted a narrative that there was a pre-existing condition, that Lorna had a pre-existing condition. And that's the reason that she had passed away, which to me seems totally irresponsible, because at this point, we can't determine what actually led to her death. We have a lot of questions and suspicions, a lot of questions. We also have a lot of shadiness from the True Leaf Corporation related to Lorna and outside of Lorna, federal prison time. So much going on. Today we just found out about testing fraud related to True Leaf Corporation again. So tonight we wanted to just go to the words of Lorna and when they were spoken, because this is important. Her words, her post, Lorna's words directly rebut the True Leaf narrative. They directly rip apart everything that True Leaf just said. And the dates of them are so important. Things what we've been talking about, her words also confirm 100%. It's conclusive at this point that Lorna was taken out by ambulance 2 times. There wasn't in doubt, because we had so many witnesses on this, but we hadn't seen any real documentation. These posts, again, prove that for any of the reporters out there. November 9th, that was the first time that Lorna was taken out by ambulance. True Leaf let her continue to work in this situation where she couldn't breathe in the location. And in January, she collapsed. For a second time, was taken out by ambulance. And this time, she didn't return to work. She didn't return home. She died. They say they have no responsibility. They say it was pre-existing conditions. Lorna's post that we're looking at right here, they prove that the pre-existing condition was bullshit, that she didn't have any pre-existing condition until she started working at True Leaf. And that even on Christmas, by December, she was having trouble. She couldn't even, after she, imagine this too. Think about this. In November, Lorna collapses. She can't breathe at True Leaf. She collapses. Employees complain. There's a Cannabis Control Commission investigation happening. And what did they give her for a Christmas bonus? Cannabis flower that she couldn't even smoke. That's a really responsible corporation right there. And then they leave her in the conditions that led to her collapsing in November. Happens again in January. And this time she passed away. But True Leaf wants to say it's a True Leaf pre-existing condition that didn't exist until she started working at True Leaf. So we're just going through some of the statements. We're just going to read her words tonight. This was November 9th, 2021. This is the first time she collapsed. This is her words. This is what she posted on her Facebook to her friends. Don't ever take breathing for granted, gasping for breath. Begging for help is not fun. Second post on November 9th. Just got rushed out of work in an ambulance because I couldn't breathe at all. Thought I was going to die. I'm really nervous to find out why. You know, I don't think True Leaf or the Cannabis Control Commission wanted to know why. And that's really the issue here, is that a lot of these cannabis operators don't seem to want to know why. We're going to read some more of her posts. November 30th, 2021, shortly after the first collapse. I'm really not okay. Weed is like my passion. Smoking is my favorite thing to do for over 13 years. Now, out of fucking nowhere, I can hardly breathe in oxygen. But I don't have COVID. I puff this inhaler more than I smoke now. So this wasn't pre-existing. This started. That proves it started by her words. If you believe Lorna, I believe Lorna over True Leaf. There's more too. Here's one too. December 8th, she comes out of work. She says, LOL, I literally smell like I've been rolling around in a big bag full of firebud. I love my job. Now she talks about on December 22nd, never thought that I'd work for a company that gifts all its employees with weed for Christmas and how much she loved it. But then a couple days later, December 24th, she wrote, I got weed that's tested at 37% and my lungs won't even let me enjoy it. And then on January 4th, this is just a couple days before she collapsed and died. This is what she posted to her friends and family. I don't think there's a single company in America that gives a single F about its employees. This is what one of her coworkers wrote shortly after her death. I went from loving my job to loathing it. I lost my friend Lorna there. She had been crying because her boss was yelling at her. She passed shortly after. Now her boss is my boss, and it makes me want to cry every day. We used to work 8 to 4. Now it's 5 to 1:30. Our crew used to be 15 strong. Now there are 4 of us. Picking up the extra slack has been exhausting. I tried to transfer to a different department. No. I applied for the lead position in the kitchen. Didn't even look at my application. This is what people are dealing with at these places. We're also looking at the photo of Lorna and the respirator. There's a few other things that we're going to be going through. I want to say probably the last show that we did. At the end, I got a little bit, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it, but I got a little bit kind of fired up about whistleblowers that are halfway on it. And I'm happy to say that, some people documentation's coming through in a lot of cases. We're getting a lot of information. This is going to be an ongoing story. There's things that we can't share publicly, information that we can't share, because this is going to be a long arc story. I want people to be aware of that. This isn't, we're on the short term. We want short term success. We want changes, but for us, it's also long term. And there's a lot happening. Just on Friday alone, I was kind of just blown away by that day, by all the things that happened. On every phone call, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And the last one was just so lot happening around this situation and around cannabis workers. And we're going to be on it. I want to give a huge thank you to Lorna McMurray. This woman's a hero. She spoke up. Thank God she wrote these things. She's smart enough. This is what she's a whistleblower. She blew on her own death. That's what workers need to do. You need to document everything. Make sure that your friends and family can get access to that information and share it with someone like myself after, so that we can get it out to the world. Because Lorna's words are exposing the True Leaf lie. And a lot of people are noticing. And thank you, Lorna McMurray, for being who you were. You were a genuine person, and I could see it. I wish I had gotten to know you. I feel like I got to know you. It's so incredible to read your words while this was all happening. It's heartbreaking. We're going to do a lot more, hopefully, for your mom, Laura, and the family and all the friends. I want to thank everyone, too. The whistleblowers for sending documents, the family for sharing. I know it's so difficult. And I want to thank all of our followers and supporters, because you've been sharing this and sending it to people. It helped us get a lot of coverage, and it's opening up doors that I didn't think would even be possible at this point for this type of content, for these types of stories. And I think we're going to see a lot more great coverage, and it's going to be for the workers. So, and it's going to be for Lorna. Like we're doing this in her name. We don't want to forget her. So just wanted to come up tonight and just share some of the stuff, especially from Lorna. The words from Lorna, so powerful. She called them out. Posting a comment right now from David, her stepdad. He says he's here watching tonight. Facebook user writes, repeated offenders, shake my head. It seems like True Leaf is repeated offenders. They're a bait and switch company. That's another thing too. Like, we're getting documentation on so much. Number one, look at True Leaf's Better Business Bureau rating in the state of Florida. It's an F. They're not good to veterans. I mean, just look at the first complaint you see there from the veteran. And most of it is what we're seeing in other documentation we're receiving is bait and switch. This company is a bait and switch company. They constantly put out promotions that have exclusions that they don't list, so that the patient shows up and then has to pay and not get the discount that they thought they were getting. This happens quite a bit with them. No return policy. They are vicious in the way that they treat their customers and their employees. I'm hearing that often their checks are late, that they can't get paid on time, that they wait days and days to even get paid at this place. So much going on. My name is Mike Crawford. This is the Young Jerks. If you want to support us, there's quite a few ways you can do so. You can obviously call in. We're talking tonight about Lorna McMurray. She was a True Leaf worker who passed away in Holyoke in January. And we've been covering this because, this is something that's in our beat, the worker safety issue in cannabis. And workers told us that this was probably going to happen. Someone would pass away in a cultivation site from respiratory issues. And here she is. And we're all about this cause. And if you want to support us, you can definitely do so. I want to thank everyone for sharing and just sending it out there to the world. You can call in tonight, 978-560-3155. You can support us at Anchor, midnightmass.substack.com. We also have a Patreon. I want to thank everyone who's been supporting this story, especially, and getting it out there and getting us information. And I want to give, big high five to the whistleblowers. We have a lot of moles out there.
And I want to thank them for sticking out their necks. I know there is a risk to this, but you're doing it for the right reasons. And that will take you a lot further. Believe me. So much is happening for us this week. Good stuff. And it's because we're taking on this heavy story, this heavy toll. It's like, if you do good for the world, it will come back to you. That's my belief. And I think that people need to stand up at the right time for the right reasons. And this is like one of those. And this is in the cannabis industry. And this is for me. Like, I could be easily doing puff cannabis stories and getting funding from all these big cannabis companies, being, the guy that wanted legal weed for 20 years and used my name for it. I could do all that stuff. But I don't want that. There's no way I could sleep at night. It feels so much better to be doing what we're doing. I feel good about what we do. The only thing I have a problem with is the time management, and like tonight, I was like, I have to get this show in tonight. Couldn't just relax, had to do a show. But that's what this stuff dictates, and we do it right now. Later on, it might be a little longer form and take our time on it. But when it's something like this, we needed to get it out tonight. And again, I want to mention tomorrow night, we have a huge show, Sunday night at 7 p.m. It's an election special. And for the Lorna, folks that are following the Lorna story, I'm sure it will actually come up tomorrow night. We're going to have quite a few local campaigns calling in, mostly Democrats, maybe a Republican or two. We'll see. But we're going to have quite a few different people running for office, and a lot of them are underdogs. Some of them are expected to win, actually, maybe not underdogs. So there's a wide variety there of people who are going to be calling in campaigns and things that they might be able to do or not do, depending on the office they're running in. But, for the ones that it's valid on, that we think that they could actually do something in the elected office, we're going to definitely ask about Lorna tomorrow night. And any other questions you have, because I know that the people have plenty of questions out there, whether it's pro-choice and Social Security, protecting Social Security. There's so many reasons to vote this year, protecting democracy, a woman's choice. That's huge reasons to vote. And I also think, people talk about the economic. Yeah, protecting Social Security is a huge economic issue, and that's another one. So many reasons to vote. I want to encourage everyone to vote. If you want more info, too, about some of the ballot initiatives, some of the local sheriff races, especially in Massachusetts, the local district attorney races, we're going to be covering all that tomorrow night, Sunday night. And from a cannabis angle, from a social justice angle, Lauren Pespiza, Splendid Spoon on Twitter, is going to be joining me, co-hosting. I'm very happy about that. We have a lot of history and fun together, and she does great work. So, she's huge about prison abolition, women prison abolition. So I'm sure that might come up tomorrow night. But we're going to be taking calls from campaigns. We know we have State Senator Diana DiZoglio, who is also the Massachusetts Democratic primary winner for state auditor. I believe she's probably going to be the first call we take tomorrow night. She's going to be returning to the show. Having trouble speaking tonight like I always do, but it's because I'm excited. And as well, we're going to have Jenny Armini, who is the state rep Democratic primary winner and an open seat up on the North Shore. So we're going to have her as well. And a few other great people. I think we're going to have Rahan, Rahan Hall, who's running for district attorney. He's with the ACLU. We're very happy, hopefully, that he calls in. I think we're also going to have a sheriff candidate and maybe a few others too. Anthony Amori might be another one that might call in. We'll see. It's going to be an exciting night. I love those shows because they're live and we never know who's going to call in, who's going to hang out long enough to get through. Sometimes we lose them because they're waiting in line and they all call in at the same time. I guarantee at about 7:15, every single candidate will be on the line. And then like at 8, we'll be like looking for them to call back. That's usually how it works out. But we'll see what happens tomorrow night, Sunday night, 7 p.m. Myself and Lauren Pespiza get out the vote and get informed vote. So you know what you're doing when you go vote on Tuesday in Massachusetts. Listen on Sunday night, tomorrow night to us, 7 p.m. But again, this show tonight was about Lorna, and I just wanted to just kind of throw a few things out there that we are finding out about True Leaf. And there's more corruption. There's so much corruption. It's not even, we don't even know when to begin or, end. We start throwing out little tidbits here and there. But the more we look, the more there is. So it will be worked on and dealt with and examined over time. Definitely, I guarantee you that. We're going to post a few more comments tonight. Here's one. The company sounds like the Trump family of cannabis dispensaries, and talk about con artists. Oh my God, that is such a good analogy, Kevin. And it brings me back to Ron DeSantis. Like, his campaign people are tied in with True Leaf. So there you go. It really is. True Leaf is really like it's like a similar, I don't want to say criminal organization, but I will. Both of them are basically, if you look at them, how many lawsuits, how many OSHA complaints, how many crimes. I mean, there are crimes associated with people related to these, companies. So I would say very similar to the Trump family. Very good, astute comment from Kevin coming in off Facebook Live right now. Another comment says, Mike, there's so many more. I just sent you probably 20 more statuses of Lorna's. Thank you for continuing to do this for Lorna, her family, and friends. It means more than you know. And we're just going to keep sharing those to the world. I think people need to know that. The company knew what was going on, and they kept sending her back in. We had a call this week from a gentleman in Maine who I'm probably going to have on the show next week. And he had actually a pre-existing condition, asthma, and he really treated it and addressed it, and it went away for like a long, I don't want to say the number of years, but I think he said 5-10 years. It was gone. And he worked at some small grows in Maine, and he was fine. He didn't have any asthma. And then he started working at one of these larger cannabis grows, and he's not going to name them. And the reason why he's not going to name them is because they were awesome about it. He got
a piece of this. It's reminding me how good my mic used to be. I got to get this mic working again. It's funny. I had it looks like COVID hair, COVID beard. Pretty funny. Yeah, I did look a little different, didn't I? I was a little younger then. Oh, goddamn. It's sad to go back and look at this. I looked younger without the Bushman beard. You think I look younger now? Oh, that's funny. All right. Yeah, I have better lighting now too. I had bad lighting back then. All right. I want to thank everyone who's supporting tonight. Life Artist, Not the Gen X, thank you. And Sarah and Chuck and Hara. I also want to thank Dr. Jeff Rawson for being here tonight. Check him out. kansai.org. Check out his website. I'm going to check out. I will see you all later very soon. Tuesday night at least. Peace out, jerks. Hopefully we'll be back on X. We'll see. Is anyone missing me on X? It's funny. I think I like this vacation from X. It saves me a lot of time. A lot of drama. A lot of drama on X. All right, jerks. I'll see you at least definitely Tuesday. Oh, tomorrow we'll be doing the Lindsay Clancy verdict watch in the morning as well. So I'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you, jerks. Thank you to my mods. Thank you to the ladies in the chat. We'll see you tomorrow morning.